Hello, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. So today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I am not somebody who's a big rereader, though I do wish I were, and I can really see the merit in it. But today I want to talk about books that I wish I could read for the first time again. And there are so many books on this list that I wish I can experience again for the first time. So it was hard for me to narrow it down to 10. But when I was thinking about it, I thought about books that had a really shocking moment or twist, or there were special characters that I would wish I could be introduced to again for the first time. So if I were to reread them, I'm sure I would get even more from them, knowing what's to come or knowing the characters that I'm going to meet. But you won't get that first time experience ever again, and I am so envious of anybody who has not read these books, because you really should, and you are in for a ride. So I'm going to recommend 10 books that I wish I could reread for the first time again, and let me know what books would be on your list. And I just want to note that I don't have any of these books with me right now. I have a couple, but I figured I'd just post up the pictures because I am away from my book collection at the moment. But the one that I just read, and I want to start again as soon as I put it down, but I do think it's one that when I reread it, if I were to ever reread it, it would be interesting knowing how this thriller wraps up and looking for all the foreshadowing, and that is Spades. And what's really great about this book is there are so many clues. There's so much tension in this book, and it is definitely a thriller. That is what it is genre. That's the genre that many people say it is, and it is that. But it's something more. It really does feel like YA contemporary with a thrilling aspect. It is, people say it's Gossip Girl plus Get Out, and that is perfect description of this book. It's one of those books that I just wanted to throw against the wall. I was so frustrated and infuriated, and that was the author's intention. She nailed it. It was perfection. But I'll never get to read that again for the first time. I will never have that moment of where all the pieces come together and it just clicks and your jaw's on the floor moment from that book again. And I know many of us have read that book and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm so envious of all of you who have yet to pick it up, because you really should. And it deserves all the hype that it's been getting. The next one on my list is Bad Heroines, and that is by Emily M. Danforth. And this is a chunky book, so just know that if you're going to pick this up, and it is a long one. I also listened to the audiobook, which I thought was really, really amazing. And I didn't know what to expect going into this one, because I have read The Miseducation of Cameron Post by the same author, which I loved, but this is completely different. This Bad Heroines is more of a horror, and there's two timelines. It takes place at a boarding school many years ago where a girl is murdered, and there's mysterious things happening here. You're never gonna look at wasps the same way again. And then it flashes back to present day where there are women getting ready to film a movie adaptation of the events from the past. So there's a lot going on here, but it's just so brilliantly written and atmospheric, and I just love the setting. There are, of course, great twists and turns. It is a horror, but I'll just never get to experience that feeling of discovering these characters again for the first time, of their relationships with one another, seeing how they grow. And it's just such a complicated book. I actually think if I were to reread it, I would maybe appreciate it more, but just that first time reading it, I really fell in love with it, and I had no idea what to expect going in, and I think that is the best way to do it. The next one I'm going to keep really brief, because I think it's best to go into this one with no spoilers, and that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, the best book that I read in 2020, and if you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. So don't even read the back of this one. I understand that you're going to be confused for part of it, but that's really the point. It is worth it, the effort. It is brilliant. I actually want to reread the first book before I continue on with the series, because I'm sure there was so much that I missed the first time I read it, but wow, that was brilliant. Then we have another one of my favorite books, that's Bitter Orange by Claire Fuller. And this is an interesting book to put on this list because it is very literary, and I don't think you'd expect there to be some jaw-dropping moments in here, but something happens that I just was not prepared for, and it was executed so well. I just adore Claire Fuller's writing. And if you want a book that you can physically feel, the atmosphere is that hot, that tense, you can feel it, this is the book to pick up. But it is worth every moment. I wish I could experience that again for the first time, just that feeling of heat And then there's one moment where I just could not believe what was going on, and it changes the whole dynamic of the book. It's just so well done. And then I have another more recent read, and that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I'm sure this is one that a lot of you have read or is on your TBR, and trust me, pick it up. Don't read the back. Please do not read the back. There's something in there, and I know I've seen a lot of people talk about this, that some people think it's a spoiler, some people don't. I personally think it's a spoiler because I had no idea going in, and I loved that moment. So please don't read the back. Don't watch too many reviews or reading vlogs of people rating it. Just pick it up and give it a try. There is a lot of science conversation in here, but I thought it was pretty accessible, and it's worth it just for the characters alone. So definitely one that I wish I could experience again for the first time, and it's been one of my best reading experiences of 2021 because of something that happens that I will not talk about. Would it be me if I didn't have a Tiffany D. Jackson book on this list? Of course, I could put any of her books on this list. I would love to experience Grown again for the first time. Allegedly, the ending of Allegedly is so hit or miss for some people, but I thought it was brilliant, so that would be interesting to be able to read again for the first time. And I honestly think it's one of those endings where if I read it on another day, maybe I wouldn't like it as much. It just depends on your mood. It's really interesting. But the one that I officially included on the list is Monday's Not Coming, which is my favorite of her books. And the timeline in this book is very confusing for a while. I was really like scratching my head wondering what's going on here, but you have to just trust Tiffany D. Jackson, and it's so worth it. And I don't think I'd ever read this book again because it is so heartbreaking. I just don't think I could handle it, but I do wish I could read it again for the first time because Tiffany D. Jackson is just a genius, and I love all the characters in there, and Claudia. It's just such a brilliant book. And then I have The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and this one's more of a feeling. There's nothing really wild that happens in here or jaw-dropping or too many twists or turns or things like that. It's really about meeting these charming, sweet characters again for the first time. They are so memorable. They're all so different. They have great interactions and relationships with one another, and that was my first experience with Becky Chambers writing, and I just wish I could get that feeling again of discovering a new favorite author. I read the first chapter of that book and just knew that I found an auto-buy author, somebody that I'm going to love. That doesn't happen very often, so that'd be amazing to experience Becky Chambers writing, just in general, again for the first time. She's fantastic. The next book is one that I had similar feelings about as I do for Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson, and that is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. I don't want to tell you anything that happens in here. There are a lot of trigger warnings. I will leave the Storygraph page for that and for all of these down below so you can check those out. But you just have to trust Colson Whitehead on this one, and again, it's not one I would ever reread because it's so harrowing and heartbreaking and infuriating, but it's so well done, and I haven't cried in a book like I did for that one in a long time, or since. Then I read that as soon as it came out, but it is a heartbreaker, and just trust Colson Whitehead on that one. But yeah, if I could read that for the first time, I think that would be amazing, but I don't think my heart could take it again. And then you might be surprised that I included a nonfiction book on this list, but I had to include Bad Blood by John Carreyrou. And I picked this book up, I think it was a Book Riot podcast had recommended it, and I thought it sounded interesting, and I do like to listen to a nonfiction book at least once a month, and I just thought I'd try it. It was on Scribd, the audiobook. And I knew nothing about Elizabeth Holmes or Theranos going into this, and that is a wild ride. So if you don't know anything about that company or Elizabeth Holmes, just trust me, pick it up. It is quite an interesting story, and John Carreyrou himself was deeply involved in exposing everything that happens here, and he interviews a lot of the players involved. So he himself is almost a character in his own nonfiction story of how this all unraveled, so it's worth it. Definitely read his account. I know there are some articles out there and stuff, but if you want all the dirty details, pick that book up. It's a lot of fun. It's like nonviolent true crime, which is a genre I'm discovering I really like. Read that book now. I know all about Elizabeth Holmes, so it wouldn't be one that I'd reread or would get the same feelings about if I were to reread it, but I'm so jealous of anyone that can reread that and learn about that company for the first time because it's just outrageous. Then the final book on this list is one of my favorite thrillers, and that is I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. And I don't know how to explain this one to you. you go into it thinking it's one thing and it ends up being something else. And that is all I will say. I have never been so surprised by a thriller in my entire life. Nothing has really held a candle to that one. You go into a thriller knowing there are gonna be twists and turns. This one just knocked me out of my seat. It was so shocking, and I've seen a lot of reviewers who have felt the same way, but it's just such a brilliant moment and well worth reading. So if I was gonna recommend you one thriller, it would be I Let You Go, because I just thought that that was fantastic. So that is my list, 10 books that I wish I could read again for the first time. And again, I know I didn't go into detail about all of these because I do think all of them are best experienced going in as blind as you can, and just trusting the authors on these ones, knowing that shocking things are gonna happen, or you're gonna meet really interesting characters, and the journeys are just worth it. And if you read any of these, I'd love to know what you thought about them. If they are in your TBR, please pick them up. But also in the comments, please let me know any books that you wish you could reread for the first time, because I would love to read them myself, or let's talk about them in the comments. So again, thanks for your time. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.